Hey guys, it's good to be here. Sorry, a little loud. I talk loud. Yeah, Jeff kind of hit me up back in April. We was at the SPE symposium and come up to the booth. We were sitting there talking, just having some casual conversation, and I just got kind of like I normally do, as many of you in the room are familiar. I just start sharing about my family and kind of what we're going through and stuff. And Jeff gets this big smile on his face and he said, "I need that at OCF." Cool. I don't want an answer. Go pray on it. And immediately you have, hey, you should say yes. You know you should say yes. The other side is, whew, man, we got by. We're lucky. We don't have to speak. Like maybe he'll forget. We rode till June at the Petroleum Alliance in Dallas. Jeff comes up, introduce our wives. We get to talking. We step to the side and he's like, hey, I just finished this book called the 10-Second Rule Book. In the next 10 seconds, do the next right thing. And so he starts giving me a couple of little things that he's done through it. And have you thought any more about that talking? Well, I'm in the corner. Well, yeah, you got to say yes. So thank you, Jeff. Our motto this year in our community group at church is get comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm a sales guy. I love people. I love talking to people. I do not like speaking in front of a crowd. It makes me super anxious. If you can feel me right now, like I'm a ball of nerves at the moment. Hey, let's grab the bull by the horns and go. So everything I will tell today is about my family, what God's done in our life, like the people He puts in our life, the trials and tribulations in which we go through. And, you know, a lot of times when you start thinking about trials and tribulations, a lot of those things that we go through aren't just for us. They're for somebody else, for you to be able to step out, help somebody else that's in a situation that doesn't know Christ. And by you going through those things, you know in Christ, you can help bring them to Christ because you're there in that boat with them, when a lot of times you feel like you're by yourself in that boat. So Charley Mathis, I'm out of Tulsa. I've been doing corporate sales in Tulsa for the last 12 years. I spent 8.5 years at Weatherford. I spent 5 years at CUD, 4 years at CUD, and I've been at TTS for 4 years. My wife, Miranda, we've been married to be 14 years come October 16th. We've got Brandon to be 13. Quinley's 5 and Quade is 4. This is my mom, Debbie, and my dad, Eddie. I grew up in Indianola, just north of McAllister. Got in the oil field in 2005. 2005. Fastenal put me chasing Bronco drilling rigs, and then ended up being at Weatherford just out of the blue and got offered a job I couldn't pass up. So Miranda and I in 2016, she got the opportunity, or God put it on her heart to adopt. We knew some families and friends. We'd been in a marriage class. We met a couple that in that class that they kind of just took us under the wings, just become good friends. You know, they're about 15, 20 years older than us. And you know, they had been fostering, and, you know, she just kind of felt this calling. Me, not so much. Like when she mentioned it, it kind of scared me. Like, that's not for this guy. It's not my blood. It's not for me. But pretty selfish, pretty prideful to think that way, especially looking back now and to see the blessing that's come through it, you know, how God works in those times. You know, I could have been that person that said, no, we're not doing that. That's not going to happen. That's not for this guy. It may be for you. It's not for me. And thank God that I wasn't that person. You know, I could see past that. And, you know, God just has this way that when, you know, especially as a spouse, you know, when He puts on your heart, you come together as a team and you build off of that. So 2016, we jump in, we go after it. We get through all our training. Obviously it was meant to be, because I'm a person that when things are meant to be, it's like a domino effect. It just falls right into place. No hiccups, no barriers, like it's moving on. Obviously it's God's plan, because when you start finding all the roadblocks, you probably better step back and pray on it and think about it, because it's more than likely it's not meant to be. We prayed on it. Sure enough, everything falls in place. DHS steps forward, offers us Brandon. Brandon moved into our house in May of 2016, so he's been with us just a little over 7 years now. In that time, we got to learn a lot of things we didn't know. You know, you go through a lot of trauma. You deal with a lot of trauma from the past. You go through learning about how someone else has raised somebody, and just, you know, understanding, you know, life's not always peachy and rosy as sometimes life is made to be. It's not. It's full of ups and downs. And Miranda and I, through this time, we come to know through some of our treatments. We've got psychiatrists, we got therapists. They've become really close to us. They're actually now friends, even though they're people that's there to help in times of need. Through that, it's really segued a door of road to other people. And so the really big one that stands out is we were asked to speak at church, and her and I was talking about this or not. I kind of forgot about this, and I didn't share this with Jeff, but she reminded me. We go to speak at church. We were asked to speak, and we get up there that morning. Our congregation is about 400 to 500 on an early Sunday morning. You know, there's about 2,500 in the roll of our church, but you know, depending on the day, you know, you could have 400 to 600 in the mornings. And so I get up there to speak and get started talking, and I go blank. Like, I literally go blank. I don't remember what the last word I said. I don't even know what to say going forward. And all I can see is these bright lights, and I'm just like a deer in the headlights. And she's like, it's okay, speak. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I got no words. Like, I am out of words at this moment. It's okay, speak. And I'm like, we don't understand. Like, and she gets, oh, you're like locked. Yeah, I'm brain locked. Like, I can't speak. I am freaked out at this moment. And so I step back, Miranda steps up, she speaks, beautiful, she cries, emotions. And our pastors, we go out, and I'm like, dude, like, what's everybody gonna think? Like, you just blew it in there. Like, you couldn't even talk. Like, I was just like blown away. Like, how did you lock up like that? It wasn't meant for you to speak that morning. Somebody in that congregation there needed to hear your wife's voice, not your voice. And I'm like, I don't know, so he knows what he's talking about. Like, what? That doesn't make sense. And so we go to community group and come back next service, and I step up there and speak just with confidence, and it was really cool. Well, a couple months later down the road, we get a letter from this family, and they're like, hey, thank you for getting up there and being honest and sharing your testimony. Thank you for sharing what you're doing, God's doing in your life. And they had actually entered the adoption foster process because of our story. I had 3 other guys come up at a men's conference. They stepped up, same thing. Hey, thanks for being honest. Like, thanks for getting up there and saying your wife wanted it. You struggled with it, because that's me. I'm in that boat right now. I'm there. Like, how did you do it? Well, it's because of God. It wasn't me. Let's be honest. It's not this guy. There's nothing glamorous about me. God had a plan. I'm just part of the plan. And it's just like being here today. I'm just the vessel. God's the one that's here. So through that, we got to... through our therapists, our psychiatrists and stuff, I'm super particular about my haircut. I got a haircut yesterday, so I'm super particular about my hair. My dad was a barber growing up when I was a kid. My dad's always cut my hair. You know, I never did let nobody cut my hair besides my dad. And when I moved out, I had to start paying for a haircut. Who pays for those things? Like, that's always been free in where I grew up. And so the lady that cut my hair in Tulsa for about 6 years, she moved and went to California. And I was pretty bummed about it, because it's like, it's a simple haircut, but a lot of people really mess it up. And so one day, Miranda had been taking Brandon to this place behind our therapist, and I was like, well, I'll just stop in there. You know, those ladies seem really nice. I'll let one of them cut it. And so after a few times of going there, Miss Rhonda, I was getting up, and she was like, hey, how's my little buddy doing? And I'm like, well, you know, we're kind of in a valley right now. We're going through a valley. And I said, things aren't really great in our house right now. You know, there's some things going on our end, his end. And I said, you know, I got Sharon, and all of a sudden this girl on the other side of her, like, she perks up, and she comes and joins the conversation. Number one, I don't know who she is. I've never seen her. I don't know her name. She starts asking questions, and the questions she's asking is pretty personal questions, you know. She goes into, you know, like asking psychiatrists and therapists and medications and all this different stuff. And, you know, my immediate first was, why do you want to know this? Like, why should I tell you that? But I got this gut instinct, hey, answer her questions. Just keep answering her questions. And every time I stalled and hesitated, like, answer her question. So I'd step up and answer her question. And, you know, it was, as I walked after I left, I kind of scratched my head going to truck. I was like, what was that about? Like, I don't understand, like, what did she want with those? Like, what are you getting out of that? And, well, much to my surprise, 2 weeks later, I fully got to know. I come through the door, and she runs at me bawling. It's like somebody turned a spigot on. And she grabs me and hugs me, and I'm like, who are you, and why is your paws on me? Because I don't even know your name. And she's like, you, oh my gosh, you're an angel from heaven. Like, you have no idea what you did for me last week. I just answered some questions last week. I didn't do anything. No, I did everything for her. God put me in this girl's life. Her son has the same exact diagnosis as Brandon, to a T. Literally right down, every diagnosis has it, except for one. And we got to share where we're at in our family, what we've been through, the things, the trials and tribulations. She's there, she's in the midst. She's in a war that she has no ammunition. She doesn't even know where to begin. Do I run? Do I lay down? What do I do? And so through that, we've been able to kind of help and lead and guide her. So every 2 weeks I get my hair cut. We talk about our kids, we talk about our family, we talk about what we've gone through, how can we help, we pray for each other, and it's been beautiful. I chair the sporting clay shoot in Tulsa for the SPE. Same thing there, the ranch that we shoot at, the family, same exact story. The daughter-in-law, she comes up and she's like, we get to talking, her mother-in-law was telling me about their son. He had taken a medicine, and she's pretty vocal about it. The medicine, he ended up, when he come off of it, the doctor didn't keep track of him and follow up like he was supposed to, and he ended up committing suicide. And so she's pretty vocal. His dad, not so much. He won't speak about it. He just walks away. What I've learned through that story and what I've learned through our story is you got to share your story. Your story is important. Your story is for other people. It's not for you to keep inside. God give you a story. God puts you in a place. He puts you at the right time, right place, every time for that reason. And that reason is because someone else is in that boat. You're not alone. You're not by yourself. Somebody there needs you. And when you take yourself out of the picture and you back up and you look at the big picture and get out of the funnel or out of the little circle, you realize, hey, there's more to this story than just myself. Christ is in the middle of it, and Christ is using us as we're obedient. We have to be obedient. And obedience has been a struggle in my life. I've been a Christian. I got baptized. Excuse me. I graduated high school in '99. I got baptized the morning of my graduation. We had a baccalaureate. And, I've been a Christian since 1999. In 2021, I'd never read the Bible all the way through. And so in 2021, I'm like, how can you call yourself a Christian? You've never read the Bible all the way through. One of the reasons I don't share my faith, I'm afraid somebody's going to ask me a question I don't have an answer to. I've never read that. Like, how do you not know that story? Like, how would you not know that? Well, that's how the enemy works. He wants you to think those negative things so you won't share. Because the less you share about Christ, the more he wins and Christ doesn't. But the moment we step out on a limb and we allow the sharing, the blessings and the nuggets that come out that are huge. And you'll be amazed the little bitty blessings that where you'll just share something super small that you kind of think is just like a surface level conversation means the world to that person, completely changes their direction in life. The trajectory is this way, now they're going this way towards Christ. And so just having that obedience. So 2021 changed my life in the Word every single day. 365 days I'm in the Word, front to back. I did a thing that was 3 chapters in the morning, or 3 chapters old, 3 chapters new. I was really amazed at how I just read that in the Old Testament. Like, that's exactly what I just read in the Old Testament. And if I'd read it from front to back, I don't think I would have picked up on that. But the way that had me going through the devotion, I caught it. Like, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. Like, I've read that before. I've studied that. Like, I've heard it in church. I've heard it preached on. I've heard it in Sunday school. And so I was able to kind of correlate that. But God really grabbed a hold of me last year. There's a couple of men in this room that we share a really deep, special bond. There's a group here in Edmond. Some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not. It's called True North Ministries. They're out of Edmond. They follow John Eldredge's Wild at Heart. If you hadn't been part of it, you hadn't followed John Eldredge, I highly recommend it. It's a life changer for me. But one of the guys was going through some stuff and asked me if I wanted to join. And I was like, sure, I'll go with you. I'll be there as a support guy. I'll be glad to go support. And that's where God's like, no. You're going to go support, but me and you got work to do. I got to change a few things in you. I've got to show you some things. And so we get there, and it's really good. Ladies, us men are really messed up because for the women, you have a spring and a fall retreat. For men, it's a monthly thing. So we have a lot of stuff to work on. But what's beautiful about it is you just watch these guys' lives change. My life changed completely. My life, God grabbed me, busted me like a watermelon. I remember right where I was at walking down the road was on Sunday. They do a baptism after every event. Those that come to know Christ, those that rededicate, whatever the case may be. And I'm walking down the road, and all of a sudden I get this, you need to get baptized. I'm like, where'd that come from? Like, I got baptized in '99. I'm like, why would I get baptized? Like, what's that? And you need to get baptized. And so I notioned it off and went on about my business and got down to where I've been praying, got down there and was on the steps and I was praying, and here it comes as clear as can be. You need to get baptized. Have you ever thought of the scripture where God says, Jesus says, I've come to set the captive free? Everything you've done in your life that you think you've done wrong, the things you've said, the things that you've done that you know is a sin, the devil's always hanging that over our head. Like, that's just fruit, like, hey, don't go share about Christ because you said this, you did this, and it's always dangling over your head, especially mine. And it's like, it keeps you from sharing. It holds you back. And for me, a lot of times I wouldn't share for that. And I got this clear vision of, hey, if you just baptize today, repent of your sins, throw everything behind you and move forth, that goes away. The captive gets set free. And all I could just see was how much my life was going to change if I did that. And so I'm like, yeah, man, let's do this. Like, I'm on fire for Christ again. Like, man, how did you get to this place? And here I go. I get up there come time for it. I couldn't raise my hand. I couldn't tell them I won't baptize. Like, I locked up. It's like this arm weighed 500 pounds. I could not get this arm up to say, hey, yes, I need baptized today. I need to wash some stuff off, and I need to start fresh and proclaim that who I follow. And when it come time, I froze. I couldn't. I just sat there and I was locked. I couldn't get my arm up. And they made some announcements. He's like, well, I guess we ain't baptized nobody. And about time I just was able to get my arm up and be like, oh, yes, right here, man. Like, right here, 100%. Like, I need this. Like, and I just started crying. Like, God grabbed me by the heart and I started crying, and I needed it. And it's changed my life. I've shared more about my faith in the last year than I've shared my entire Christian walk. I would not share with people. I'm scared to share with people. It's so easy. Like, it's not hard. I'm as guilty as anybody in the room or anybody that I know that doesn't share that, we go to church on Sunday. We're there. We do the right things. We show up on Sunday night. We're in community group. We got a community. But it's almost like Jesus becomes our best kept secret. I know about it, but I don't share it enough. And when you do, the blessings that comes out of it, like, I can't even begin to tell you, like, the blessings I get from people. The family, at the ranch, Courtney that we've got to help. This one, the story I'm about to tell you next it's exactly that. Back in 2021, Miranda's dad passed, and the family, her aunt couldn't come into town because she lives in Kentucky, and so they had her dad cremated, and so we waited a couple of months till her schedule could clear. She could get into McAllister and do a service. And so me and Miranda and the kids, we went down the night before. I dug the hole for the urn. We did a straight down, straight back, about an hour and 40 minutes out from the house down there. Get back the next morning, her and her aunts go down, and they have their own little get together. They bury his ashes, and they do their own thing. And so that night, me and her mom and her sister and a couple of cousins and her family, we went to do dinner. Well, she stopped to get some pictures developed. And dinner took forever that night. Like, my goodness, like, it was like, how long do you guys sit in a restaurant before you get your food? We've been there for like an hour before we got our food. And so she's like, babe, like, as soon as they set our food down, like, she just chugged it down, and away she went. So she went to get the pictures, and as she went to get the pictures, we were all kind of dispersing and getting ready to head to the house, and I get this call, and she's crying, she's frantic, and immediately in my heart I know something's wrong. Like, something's wrong. Like, what's happening? She's like, I had a wreck. I'm okay. They're super nice. They got a daughter our age. Like, they're really nice. And I was like, I'm on my way. And she's like, I'm okay, but their car's destroyed, baby. I just totaled their car. And I was like, it's okay. It's just a car. Like, a car can be fixed. Like, you're okay. That's all that matters. And so I get there, and me as a sales guy, the first thing I ask people when I ask your name, if we're going to get to have a conversation, where are you from? I want to know where you're from. Have I been there? Do I know somebody there? I'm looking for commonality. I'm trying to bond you and I in a commonality, so the next time I meet you, I have a common place with you in conversation. And so first thing, their name's Garrett and Beth, and I get out, where are you from? Oh, we live here in Glenpool. And I was like, oh, you from Glenpool? No. I grew up in Manford, and I grew up in Sand Springs. I'm like, Manford, huh? Or our community teacher, he's the superintendent at Manford Public Schools. Like, you know Kelly? You know Kelly Spradlin? Like, do you know Angie? Yeah, they teach our class. Like, they were some of the most amazing people I've ever been around. And like, this whole dynamic just changed. And so we got talking, where do you go to church? Well, we don't. We're kind of in between. We're looking for a place. And so we invite them to our church, or I invite them, and they're like, yeah, we'll take you up on that. But what's the more impressive thing about it is those people are now our best friends. They have become our best friends. The more important thing about that, they had been praying whether they should foster or adopt. They had been asking for clarity from God. Give us clarity. Is this the path that we are to take? We want to know for sure, is this where we're to go? And when they realized that Brandon was adopted, bam, there it is. Like that's a clarification from God. This is what we're supposed to do. We hung out all summer long, went to baseball games. I got really close. He hunts and fishes. I hunt and fish. We duck hunt together. We have a good time. They've now got a little boy that's from DHS. He's about 5-6 months old. His name's Baby A. His mom still hasn't given him a name. His mom's going MIA. She can't pass a drug test. And they're going through a pretty deep valley right now. And so, Joby Martin in his book, If the Tomb is Empty, talks about trials and tribulations and valleys. And the thing that really stood out to me, if you look at the course of your life, the whole span of your life, he talks about the 7 mountains, the significance of the 7 mountains. If you realize, very little of your life is spent on top of the mountain, and that's where you find the glory of God. That's when life's at its very best. Life can't get no more better. You just think, man, I've won the lottery. Life is great. And guess what? You're headed back down the mountain. The majority of your life is going to be spent going down a mountain, in the valley, and going up the mountain. When we're in the valley, that's when we find God. That's where we draw to God. We're not chasing our money. We're not chasing our phone, social media. We're in a place that the only place that we know to turn is to God. And He is our saving grace at that time. He gets us through what we're going through. He's who we lean on. He's who we put all our hope and our faith into. And as I think about that, it's like, I can't imagine being somebody who doesn't know Christ, because what do you do in those moments? Like, where's your hope? Where do you turn? Like, how do you survive something of that magnitude? Everybody always asks us through our adoption, when we go through trials and tribulations, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you get through those times? Well, it's because of God. Guess what? Every morning He gives us a fresh breath to start all over. Yesterday was yesterday. Today's a new day. We can always do better today. Hey, and guess what? 10 minutes later, I may fail. May fall right straight to my knees, may fall right on my face, but guess what? You can get right back up and start all over again. With His grace, His sovereignness, He allows us to do that and trip and fall all the time. It's a huge blessing. He's done so much in our lives. Our family, I can't thank Him enough for all the things in my family. The adoption, foster, we didn't ever foster, we went straight into adoption. It's been a blessing. Like it's changed our lives. It's changed me as a person. It showed me how selfish and prideful I was in the beginning. It's been really good that God can take a circumstance, something that somebody me at the time really didn't want, but now uses that for me to go and tell other people about Him, and He uses that story, and it's our story. And as I mentioned earlier about the true north thing, John Elders talks about your story, and I've been through like 9 of his books, and the thing that always stands out is the story. Your story's special. Your story's unique. Your story is you. It's not someone else. And I think, Ben, your story last month, man, and the first thing I'm like, how do you follow that? But that's Ben's story, and it's a miracle right in front of our eyes, man. What a blessing. Our story's a blessing as well, You think of like where Brandon would be right now if he wasn't in our home, where he's been, before he come into our home, and all the things he'd been through, and now he's in a safe place. He's got a place that he can succeed in life. Like, he's got every chance to have a life. I think of the 4 kids that he was in the foster home with, that when they went to get him, they couldn't get him out fast enough. But guess what? They left those 4 kids there. It didn't matter. They had nowhere to go with them. They just leave them where they have somewhere at the time. And so at the time we adopted, there was like a little over 12,000 kids in the system, and they give an update at our church here probably about 7 months ago, and there's a little over 6,000 kids in the Oklahoma system right now, so that number is almost half of what it was. And so God just he's used something so small to make such an impact. I never would have thought that would make the impact that it has on our life. I get to meet people all the time through my job. I'm very open about my family. Sometimes I maybe get a little too open, but I know that there's somebody out there that's going through something that needs to hear those words at that time, that needs to hear the story. And it may be somebody that they know in their family that they can go and be like, hey, yesterday I was talking to this guy and he was sharing exactly, man, what you're going through. Like, he was telling me these things. And if you don't tell your story, you miss out, right? Like, you miss the blessing, you miss an opportunity to share the goodness of Christ. And so, anyways, Jeff, I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave it at. I think the biggest thing I would leave is the obedience factor of it. Just when God puts it on your heart to do something, as Jeff asked me, the very first thing the enemy says is, man, you don't want to do that. Like, don't do that. Like, just let it go away. It's a blessing. The big blessing that came out of, I forgot to tell at the beginning, we kicked off OCF in Tulsa last week, last Wednesday. I spoke there last Wednesday. We had about 20 people. OCF in Tulsa, I used to go to them all the time when I got to Tulsa. And when COVID happened, one of the guys that was leading it, got sick, lost his job. It just slowly dissipated and went away. And so Chad Trainer and I was having coffee and was discussing some geothermal stuff. And anyways, Chad, we was chit-chatting, and I was like, oh man, hey, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm speaking at OCF next month. And Chad was like, hey man, like, I've been wanting to kick this back off here. Like, if you're going to speak there, like, you got to speak here. Like, you're going to be the guy. And I was like, no, that wasn't why I was telling you that. Like, that wasn't where I wanted this conversation to go. But immediately, back to your 10-second rule book, God says, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to step up and help get this started, get it going again. And so we did. We invited I reached out. We didn't tell nobody I was the speaker. I reached out to about 45 guys because Chad's like, I'm not sure who'll show up. And I said, man, I can name 20 guys right off the top of my head right now I've had a Christian conversation with in the last 45 days. I guarantee you they'll show up. I don't want my name on it. I don't want them coming for me. I want them coming because it's Oilfield Christian Fellowship. It's not Charley. I don't want them coming for me. I don't want that. I want them there for the right reason. And sure enough, you inviting me to step up and do this has now opened that door to restart that. So thank you. God has a great way of doing things, and especially when we're obedient, say yes and don't refuse. So thanks for letting me come and speak. Appreciate all my family and everything. And Jeff, thank you very much.